Have you ever in your life wanted to work a draining, ultimately meaningless 9-to-5 job? No? Would the added benefit of near-certain death make you change your mind? Budget Cuts is a VR stealth action game created by Neat Corporation in 2018, and then in 2021, and then in 2023. Which is the version we'll be playing. That combines the grandiose feeling of adventure and scale seen in VR games like Half-Life Alyx with the aesthetics of Where Your Ant Works, having you play as an unnamed protagonist, who is the last remaining human around their general vicinity. See, throughout their years of working at a company named Transcorp, stamping away at vacation notices denying their fellow co-workers of seeing their families ever again, our protagonist hasn't noticed how all the people around them have been slowly disappearing and being replaced by friendly yet slightly unsettling robots, with constant smiles carved on their faces and the corporately clean vocabularies of a TEDx presenter. But one day, they awaken from this stamping slumber to one of these robots handing them a pager, which they hesitantly take with the strange object grabbers that seem to have melded into their actual hands, and upon calling the number on the pager, a very unexpected voice answers.
Hello, can you
A
hear me?
human voice.
Hi, my name is Winter, and look, we can do the cute introductions later, but you're in terrible danger. People keep disappearing around here, and I hate to tell you, but they're coming for you
Despite our main character seeming like the type of person to say, sex is pretty cool, but have you ever used a stamp? Losing their life is something they're not willing to do for this job, so they decide to figure out where this could all lead. Find the key to the case and open it up, revealing, ooh, power beyond their assigned status. So I suppose there's nothing left to do but to grab the translocator, which, yeah, that's what that thing is, very cool teleporty high-tech device, and escape the confines of the cubicle. Now that we're able to freely explore the environment, I gotta talk about how good the set pieces of this game are. Even the office you begin in, which on a flat screen looks like a slightly above average quality stock photo, transforms in VR into an actually interesting to explore environment, thanks to the tiny details scattered about the place and sheer vibes. The place is so clean and seems well kept, but the details of a bunch of messy desks and the seemingly abandoned kitchen area make it all in actuality feel very bleak. And like this office simultaneously hasn't been touched by a living being, but also hasn't been left uninhabited for years. It's a bit difficult to try and translate the feelings I got in VR to words on a page, but the long and short of it is that it's simply fun to exist inside the world of Budget Cuts, leading to some instant and incredible VR immersion. Winter instructed us to get to the acquisitions department through another building that we need to teleport to, which, big ask for somebody who just learned they are allowed to leave their desk, but with already a little taste of freedom on our tongue, why not see how far this could go? So we move forward. In a minute, but first we gotta take another pit stop to talk about how the way you move in this game is very cool. The translocator is just a fancy way of teleporting at the end of the day, but it is that fanciness that makes it so fancy. Instead of being instantaneously moved from location to location like how a lot of other games do it, the translocator gives you a preview of where you would end up if you committed to that teleport, adding a fun level of strategy and consideration to every move you make, as well as making it easier on the weak vertigo-affected individuals of this world who need a softer landing when it comes to teleportation in VR. Now, the usefulness of this device was tempered a bit by the fact that I had smooth movement turned on, because, I mean, obviously, it's the best way to move in a VR game, which wasn't available in the original two games where teleporting was your only way of moving, and you know, most of the levels are designed around that teleporting concept, but I'm sure this won't come up at any other point in the future. Well, that was mildly terrifying. We've arrived in a whole new building filled with more of the robot workers, this Roomba, which... Oh my god, look at it! That thing is so cute, I wanna throw it... and approximately 18.52% more interior design. Whilst exploring this new area, a voice comes on the intercom.
Who is this handsome devil with the dulcet tones reaching out to me over the tannoy? I hear you wonder. Well, I'm Rex Crane III, and there's plenty of ways to describe me. International business playboy superstar philanthropist genius. And so modest, too.
Oh no. Annoying. The way to the elevator leading to acquisitions is directly behind this very convenient, very thick glass, so we have to improvise a little bit and take a detour through the ventilation system of the office supplies room, teaching the player how there are usually multiple ways to approach the roadblocks of the game. There was a door there this entire time. Right, into the elevator. Upon arriving on the next floor, we've got to get a keycard to open up the elevator to this by now infamous acquisitions department. But the entire building, including the location of the keycard, is monitored by security robots armed with military-grade weaponry. Because I guess the paperclips around here are made of endohedral furnaces that must be protected at all costs. So it is up to us to find a way around these guards. And oh look, a convenient hole in the roof. This is where the translocator really starts to shine, as now you have to use the preview function for stealth as a way to scout out each area before deciding where to teleport, to avoid the guards who are really quick to notice you and also objectively terrifying. The quickly rising beeps that near constantly inform you of how close you are to being screwed, and just the way they look add to this immense tension. I am simply mortified by these creatures, but it is making the stealth way more exciting and intense, which I do appreciate. Rex comes in to talk again, this time mentioning how the head of HR, Adam, is accepting meetings with employees, HR being the last place all previous humans were last seen before disappearing. Okay, the keycard's been acquired. Let's head back to the elevators. It's time to head home, because I'm sure it's going to be this easy. Oh, we've made it into acquisitions, arriving in the most useless room in the world, equipped with doors and elevators that simply refuse to work, meaning it's time to once again crawl through enough ventilation ducts to make a middle-aged man's knees cry, and get ourselves to another phone. Winter explains that a few accommodations have been left for us in the distributions departure as benefits for our new job as an escape artist, and instructs us to go get acquainted with one another. Rex calls once again, this time with no substance behind his words. We manage to easily pass the guards of the distribution center, only almost getting caught multiple times, and find the knives stored within, when Winter calls yet again to inform us that the exit is located in the cybernetics department. Which is like saying, oh no, the steel plant is completely safe, just take a right through the incinerator and you'll be fine. But I mean, what else is there to do at this point? We've gone too far anyways, there's no going back. So, hesitantly, we pick up the knives and go do some target practice, which you're obviously terrible at since you have the wrists of an office worker. We're now armed and kind of ready. Rex comes in to talk about Adam's appointments once again. A few more trips through the vents later, we find ourselves taking an elevator up to the cybernetics floor that leads directly behind a guard. There's no way to avoid a confrontation here. We all know what has to be done. Yeah. Come on, god damn it. Whoa. Okay. The AI in this game is a bit shit. See, this is where the whole smooth locomotion thing comes back into conversation. I'm sure these confrontations were really intense in the original games, trying to aim the translocator to evade attacks and also aim your knives at the gods, but in the Ultimate Edition where you have the option to move freely, this is not the case. Because now the fights mostly consist of spinning around the gods for like a second to get them to forget you ever even existed instantaneously, giving you ample time to stabby on the backy. And from this point onward, the gods went from the most terrifying things in the game that left me paranoid checking every corner of every room to these silly little creatures I needed to run around and hope to hit with my horrible aim. But, although unintentionally, the goofiness of the combat does elevate an aspect I really love about this game, which is that during at least the first half of Budget Cuts Ultimate, you do not feel like a cool secret agent sent out on a mission to escape the confines of these offices. Instead, you feel like, well, a bumbling, slightly incompetent office worker trying their hardest to somehow get through these high-stakes situations they are not qualified for, fumbling your way through confrontations, barely making it out of them safely, let alone smoothly. It's quite refreshing, actually, to not feel like a cool action hero in these types of games for once. It made the experience a lot more unique. Some more environments get explored and appreciated, a level 2 keycard is found because the first one was so good at opening doors that they had to make a sequel, the cybernetics department is finally reached, and hey, there's the exit. Completely locked down. Filled with guards. So, Winter lied about the whole exit being open and easy to access thing to show us just how bad things had gotten around here, so she could more easily ask us to help her figure out why all of this is going on. Yet again, we're way too deep into this, so sure, why not, let's figure out what's happening. To do this, we need a level 3 keycard from the guards at the exit, to access a floor with someone named April on it, who I'm sure is still alive and well. The keycard gets gutted, the elevator goes uppeth, and now it is time to try... So the next objective is finding the desk of this April, who was another person opposing Transcorp working on a virus capable of destroying the entirety of the building's mainframe, which should make it easier to locate Rex Crane, the third most talkative man on the planet, right next to my old history teacher and probably this guy. Apparently, her desk is located somewhere in the productions department, meaning it is time to head to the productions department and begin what is arguably one of the best missions in the game. See, by now the levels we get to explore have gotten massive, with departments being cut into multiple sub-departments which have their own subsections and rooms inside of those subsections. And one might think that this could get easily overwhelming, however, these gigantic levels have been designed incredibly. Taking the productions department as an example, because you know, we're there, it starts out with us losing all the items we'd collected up until that point, soft resetting our progress, after which we get shown that we now have to pay attention to our surroundings and read, because our main method of making it through this department is by reading the various notes and staff logs left behind by previous employees. For example, to get into the department itself, we have to find a key revealed by this leave notice, and to find April's desk we have to use this log of staff members. So now that you've learned that reading is pretty cool, it's time to head into the department itself where the real fun begins. Because technically there's only one actual route one can take to complete this level, but the game doesn't tell you this at any point and in fact lets you explore every area there is even if there's nothing for you to find in most of them yet, giving you a sense of genuine exploration, feeling like you're figuring out what you need to do all by yourself without the obvious guidance of invisible walls or hints, while simultaneously keeping you from getting lost by blocking off the most important areas in a way that makes sense in game. Not to mention how fun finding the pieces actually is. For example, at the very beginning we figure out that April's desk should be in the accounting section. So start heading there, notice the marketing department on our way. Find a note on one of the desks where a person named Margie is complaining about a post-it note stealing criminal, so we find the desk of this Margie person who's gotten a fax about someone named Wanda having a passcode to some strange room in the lobby, so we go over to Wanda's desk and get this code that at the end of the level unlocks something really cool, probably, because I forgot the code on the way there, and so on. The gameplay here is basically just a few drawn out fetch quests, but instead of feeling boring like it easily could've, it feels like you're actually figuring out a mystery from the unintentional clues and natural roadblocks left behind by the old employees. This level of detail, whilst not present in every mission, remains at a good standard of quality all throughout the game. And I just needed to take this moment to appreciate how they've managed to make looking around for some paper scattered around an office feel like finding El Dorado. So April's desk gets found, and it turns out that her virus was stolen away and taken into the showroom, whatever that is. Right, you know the deal by now. There's a new obstacle facing us, this time in the form of the showroom, which appears to be a massive vault that we have to get into by finding clues around the area, killing guards, listening to Rex yap, and ultimately feeling just a tad bit more competent than before. There's not much new to talk about in this mission, so instead I will use this time to bitch. Because I feel like the stealth aspect of the game has full-on ceased to be, or at least it's becoming the least interesting way of going about things. The game presents you with all these fun environments filled with danger and excitement that you can fight your way through, struggling to find weapons in the cupboards and dealing with inventory management at the same time. And then you look at the stealth options and find that they mainly consist of you just skipping all the fun parts, just teleporting your way through these exact same looking vents. Again, smooth locomotion is a thing that affects this aspect of the game. If I was only able to teleport, then stealth would obviously be a little bit more viable, but even then I probably wouldn't be choosing the stealth option often because it's so much more boring. It feels like I'm skipping parts of the game in a bad way. It's not an experience ruining flaw or anything, just a tad bit disappointing. But again, smooth locomotion, I might have just done this to myself. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. Oh dear, a fire. Guess you all have to group up in the fire safety zone, leaving the showroom all unsurveilled. With the virus in our hands, it's time to go shut down the mainframe.
Very important. A strong and awareness-raising accomplishment targets the attackers 50-50. Supervisor initiatives drive a controllable philosophy. Wow.
That's not how you sounded before.
You need to insert the virus into the mainframe so I can hack the system and find out where Rex's office is.
Shall we play a game?
Copy deleted. Rerouting main power to hub. Access code Alpha. Violation reported to Transcorp HR. Appointment with Adam scheduled.
Hey, look, don't worry about HR, okay? People get reported to HR all the time. Just punch in the code for the elevator that I sent you. Everything's going to be fine.
Supplies, transport, kitchenware, or other property
for taking our request.
Hey, human!
School
What are you
wishes
doing
you
here?
a safe day.
You got reported to HR? I'm sure Adam can't be that bad, right? I mean, at least you'll get to see where all the humans go.
Well, this is it. Human resources. Here, for the first time since entering this building, we can see the outside world.
Hey, so, Rex's office is up ahead. Time to get some answers from the man himself. The key is in the broadcast room. Promise me you'll be careful. You're almost there.
There's a locked door leading deeper into HR that we have to manually override with one of the door control panels up in the ceiling space, and are able to get into the main HR department, where the vibes have changed completely compared to any other area we've seen so far. The whole area is painted in dark grays, with the only illumination being a few broken fluorescent lights. This entire place, more so than any other area, feels like it hasn't been interacted with in ages. And as we venture forward, we find the broadcast room that houses Adam. Wow, he's a robot, who would have thunk it? Turns out that Rex probably isn't alive anymore, since Adam's been creating a blueprint for a robot replacement of him and has been the one who's been blasting Rex's intercom messages the entire game. Which, bro, holy shit, get a hobby! I only mentioned half of the times Rex spoke throughout the game in this video. He yapped so much. You were doing nothing else in here this entire time, were you? But why is Adam doing all this, you ask? Well, if you couldn't guess, he doesn't like humans very much and thinks they are far inferior to robots and ultimately just in the way of productivity. That is not a very nice thing, so I suggest we deal with Adam whilst we're looking for Rex's keycard. There are no weapons around this map that you could harm Adam with, and I'm fairly sure nothing short of a nuke would harm that thing, so our only options are to run away, hide, or get temporary relief from his pursuing by turning on the lights of the facility, which hurt his singular feeling of being pissed off, getting him to leave us for like 10 seconds as he goes to turn the lights back off. Actually, there is a fourth way of dealing with him, which is by doing the thing I explained to you 2 milliseconds ago, aka luring him into this room with the lights, and then going up to the ceiling space where you can find another one of those door lock mechanisms, which locks the door of the light switch room, trapping Adam in there, and allowing you to explore freely without any further distractions. We get into the broadcast room, find the key, and get the hell out of HR. Considering the whole replacement robot and soundboard thingy, I'm not particularly hopeful for the liveliness of Rex, and okay, yeah, would you look at that, he's been turned into Dredge Grime the pile of ash, and right next to Rex's remains, there's a bunch of lore to be dumped upon us. So the reason for Transcorp's unequivocal success was an invention by Rex called the Cost Optimizer, that was able to min-max all of business itself by taking out all the humanity from the process, including its creator, who made the mistake of having needs of any kind, which led to him being trapped and zapped in his own office. Winter already knew all of this apart from the dead Rex thing, because of course she goddamn did, and asks us if we would be willing to travel to the nearby city where the Cost Optimizer currently resides, and stop it from optimizing the rest of the world, because it's trying to optimize the rest of the world, because it's very evil. And considering the happenings of the last 5 hours, there is nothing out of the ordinary in that question. Let us commence forth. In the security room of the train station, there's a well-deserved inventory update and a pager to headset upgrade to prepare us for our future endeavor. We step onto some semi-natural ground for the first time in forever, take a few deep breaths, and get on the train. Oh dear, it appears we've passed out standing upright, and now that we've awoken, the train has started moving and is suddenly filled with guards and the disembodied voice of the cost optimizer. Whatever shall we do? I suppose taking in one's surroundings would be a good place to start. God damn! So if you didn't notice, we've transitioned into budget cuts too now, and I didn't expect the production quality to rise too much, but nope, it has risen like Jimbus Crimbus himself. We went from, oh my god, I get to look for a keycard in an office that has an accent wall, to teleporting between trains in the dead of night, trying to make it in front of one of them so you can defuse the actual bomb strapped onto it to make it safely to the city. We have come so far from trying to find a printed out Excel sheet. To you, this probably doesn't look that impressive, but in VR, I have never experienced anything like it. It was exhilarating. Like, I know the bomb is gonna explode at any minute, but hey, look at TV.
Welcome back, dear viewers. This is the Transcorp Daily News. Supervisors are reporting that the investigation into the incident yesterday at Transcorp offices is getting closer to a resolution. Efficient research into the matter has revealed that the persons behind the destruction are a research scientist named Winta Sagai, one April Singleton from the accounting department, and an unnamed disgruntled ex-employee. If you know the current whereabouts of the last offender, please get in touch with your nearest supervisor.
That could be anyone. The level itself consists mostly of stuff you'd expect to be doing in a typical budget cuts level, like killing guards, exploring the environment, and being awestruck at most things you see. The only noticeable difference is how the game is far more heavily leaning towards action now, since there's moments where you cannot avoid the guards, forcing you to commit violence. And also the whole bomb thing. Right, the bomb. Found it, defused it, never mind. Oh god, threw it out the window. There's a railway worker that's gonna be real pissed tomorrow, and we've made it to the city.
I don't think they know who we are yet. The cost optimizer probably thinks we died in the explosion. We need to use that to our advantage. Like I said, we're heading to the motherboard of the cost optimizer. There should be a large door just straight ahead. It shouldn't be too dangerous, unless we trigger the alarms. And we won't do that, right? Right?
About that door, once again we're met with fantastic level design, where we semi-organically find out what we have to do to get the guards away from the door via simple exploration. Despite the more action-oriented gameplay, this aspect of the game has stayed fairly unchanged, because it's hard to improve on something that's already great. During all this, we also get the slight notion that Adam might have escaped and might be in the city with us, which I will actively deny because no. After getting into the elevator, it brings us to some very familiar looking scenery, where a new tool awaits us. Oh, hell yeah, did we just get an actual ranged weapon? I'm about to cook. It's a lot harder than it looks. This new weapon has added a fairly significant change to the core formula of the game, since now the stealth aspect of the game doesn't come necessarily from avoiding enemies altogether, but instead from trying to take them down from afar without being noticed. Is what I would say if I had any aim. Instead, we're just going with the same methods as before, except now I can miss from further away. Regardless, it's a cool new addition to the gameplay with which we can hopefully make our next mission easier, which is finding a friend of Winter's named Robert who can apparently help us get to the cost optimizer fast. So we jump around rooftops, not hitting anything on our way to the building Robert resides in. And oh dear, he's an artiste. And a starving one at that, not letting you into his safe house if not given a humble taco. A simple task for anyone but my ravenous ass who genuinely ate every taco there was on the way here and had to restart the game to have them respawn. Once the taco has been handed out and Adam has been avoided because god damn it he's here, Robert gives us the game plan. On top of this building, there's a post office full of tubes that lead to various sections of the city, including one that goes straight to the cost optimizer. So all we gotta do is get to the top of the tower and teleport through this tube. So it is time for us to move forward once again, facing against a new type of enemy that has a shield and grenades, which is not so fun for my non-grenade resistant body running on caffeine and 58 tacos, until an easy to climb up from point has been reached. You've probably noticed by now that I am skimming over a good chunk of the actual gameplay, and that's because there's just not much to say about it anymore. It's what you'd expect. The climb up the tower begins with the cost optimizer and Adam coming in at random intervals to affirm themselves as antagonists. And so the climb up the tower ends. We've arrived at the seemingly too good to be true tubing system. Also, hello Newsbot, big fan of your show. The convenient and easy tubing system obviously doesn't work, as the cost optimizer manages to shut down every other tube apart from one leading down to the cargo area, which is almost as low in the facility as where we started from. All hope is not lost, however, since if we find a way to activate this elevator, it should bring us to an elevator that leads straight to the cost optimizer. There's a few puzzles with some wiring, an adventure through the production line, and oh dear. Robert? Oh god! And the passcode's been gotten. This looks like a place with very convenient placing of machinery and buttons to activate said machinery. Almost like it was meant for a battle with an authoritative figure of some kind.
Sometimes I think you've been trying to avoid me.
After all this time, we meet yet again Adam. On our first meeting, I might have been shitting my pants, but by now I have gone through far worse than you. And far smarter. So instead of chasing you to the ends of the earth like before, Adam now will stop occasionally to break these light bulbs trailed around him for some reason, letting us lure him to various locations such as a pit of saws, didn't think you could get any worse, but here we are, and the Crusher.
This is not how it was meant to end. I only tried to do my part of the gag. I only wanted...
That felt very satisfying. Adam is finally gone for good, meaning it's time to go deal with the big bad themselves, the cost optimizer.
Okay, we're almost at the end now. Let's throw one giant spanner into the optimizer's machinery. I'm not sure what you were doing in the factory, but it seems the optimizer thinks you are still there. Things should be fairly calm for a while. That's good, because we're going to need some peace and quiet to succeed with what comes next. And in preparation for that, this might be a good time to mention that I haven't been 100% honest about a few things. Nothing big, but I don't want you to, be too surprised when we meet. This is it. You're approaching the cost optimizer's motherboard, and we'll finally meet eye to eye. This is where everything began.
It feels very strange to see the outside world properly like this again. Winter said she'd be waiting for us at this exact location, and...
Well, so we finally meet face to face. Or face to circuit board, maybe?
She's a microphone. So turns out that Winter got gutted before she could do anything meaningful in her human form against the cost optimizer. But before dying got her consciousness transferred into this thing, which I guess there's worse options. Right, no time to mope around any further. Time to get Winter's plan set into action. See, Winter's figured out that there is one thing the cost optimizer lacks that could change the game if achieved. And that is empathy. Oh no, we're not doing this storyline, are we? So Winter has created an empathy drive to attach onto the cost optimizer, to get it to understand that robots should be allowed to be free and that money isn't the only important thing in this life. God damn it, we're doing this storyline! And so we cue the unfortunately worst part of the entire game. This entire finale consists of a messy and confusing fuse switching minigame where we go around balancing fuses in various rooms, with Winter yelling out incorrect instructions for where we need to go. That isn't fun and lasts way too long. The optimizer's firewall has been breached and the code has been plugged into its system. But oh no, it has to load for a few minutes first, during which we have to fend off guards by shooting these bombs at them, which is pretty fun, I'll give him that. The drive gets loaded onto the cost optimizer, who immediately turns over a new leaf and decides that their old ways were foolish and robots should be allowed freedom. The rest of the guards all instantly become friendly, and in this cheerful atmosphere, Winter thanks us for all we've done, as we walk into the outside world, ready to begin life anew, knowing we've now given genuine consciousness to these robots and forced them to live eternally, whilst we get the luxury of dying one day, not seeing the results of our actions as the robots grow bored and most likely start a war. And with that, Budget Cuts Ultimate comes to an end. That ending was a bit disappointing. I was hoping for something a bit more original, but regardless, that was the end of Budget Cuts. A pretty revolutionary title when it comes to VR that did a lot of really impressive stuff and continues to be, at least to me, one of the most impressive titles that have come out of VR, because it's one of the only ones that I have seen with a fully fledged story and large levels and varied mechanics, and I'm just amazed that this game exists in general. And the fact that it was made by such a relatively small studio. Like, it's not that small, but it's no AAA either. Like, it's very, very, very nice. And very cool, and the kind of shit that I want to see from VR moving forward. Can you tell that I'm recording this in a completely different environment from the rest of the video? So cheers, Budget Cuts, for simply existing. Okay, bye!